Pregnant wife visits prenatal clinic, sees millionaire husband holding hands with senator's daughter. Welcome, dear viewers, to a tale brimming with secrecy, heartbreak, and ultimate justice. Today's story follows a devoted wife on the brink of motherhood, a millionaire husband entangled in hidden agendas, and a powerful senator's daughter whose presence shatters everything. What starts as an ordinary prenatal visit spirals into a tangled web of deception, jealousy, and shocking discoveries. Each chapter invites you to uncover twists you never imagined possible, fueling your curiosity and anticipation. Prepare yourselves for explosive revelations, high stakes, and the sublime taste of karmic retribution. Fasten your seatbelts. This story will grip you till the very last moment. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. If you're excited about this story, let us know. If you enjoyed the video, press 1. If not, press O. Your feedback really inspires me to gather more uplifting and meaningful stories. Celeste could not stop smiling as she stepped out of her chauffeured car in front of Mount Sinai Hospital. Today was a day she'd been looking forward to since she first glimpsed that faint line on the pregnancy test. 3 years into her marriage to Adrian Lancaster, an affluent entrepreneur known for launching cutting-edge tech ventures, she was finally seeing her biggest dream manifest, motherhood. In her mind, Adrian would burst through the clinic doors any moment, arriving from one of his high-powered meetings, and they would hold hands together in the waiting room with the same unspoken devotion they'd once shared. Her heart fluttered as she entered the prenatal clinic's pastel-colored hallway. The faint hum of hushed voices, the gentle overhead lights, and the swirl of excitement in her soul felt perfectly in sync with the joyous event awaiting her. But just as she rounded a corner toward the examination rooms, she noticed a tall figure standing in a nearby corridor. The man's chestnut-brown hair, impeccably styled as always, was instantly recognizable. It was Adrian. Her eyes lit up in anticipation until she saw someone else's hand entwined in his. A slender woman, exuding an air of polished entitlement, stood close, whispering something that made Adrian laugh softly. At first, Celeste's mind refused to accept what she was seeing. This had to be some sort of misunderstanding, she thought. Possibly a business associate? She blinked, hoping that in the next moment, Adrian would notice her and pull away. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, his expression full of warmth. Shockwaves trembled through Celeste's body. Here, in the sanctity of the prenatal clinic, her heart threatened to fracture under the weight of a single unthinkable sight. Her husband, who had yet to arrive for their appointment, was holding hands with the senator's daughter, Clarissa da Costa. A single question echoed in Celeste's mind. Why? She had read about Clarissa da Costa in high society columns and political news features. Known for her father's towering influence in the state legislature, Clarissa was rumored to be as sharp as she was striking. She had a reputation for waltzing into rooms and bending the atmosphere to her advantage. Her father, Senator Benedict da Costa, was often praised for his philanthropic gestures, yet whispered about in rumor-laden corridors for alleged under-the-table deals. Clarissa, an only child, became the prized gem in his political orbit. Despite knowing of Clarissa only from media gossip, Celeste never suspected any personal connection to the da Costa family. Adrian Lancaster, for his part, always exuded the air of a respectable businessman. True, he had an uncanny knack for forging influential connections, but she never thought he'd become tangled in the senator's web or his daughter's arms. Stunned and trembling with emotion she couldn't name, Celeste inched backward, trying to distance herself from the painful tableau. The last thing she wanted was to cause a public scene, especially in a space where her prenatal care was scheduled. In that agonizing moment, she had no idea how long she stood there, watching her husband's gentle caress of Clarissa's hand. Seconds felt like hours, each moment hollowing out a piece of her heart. Finally, a sharp jolt of clarity snapped her awake. She was pregnant. This was not a time for meltdown or retreat. Determination, flecked with heartbreak, spurred her to move. She steadied her breathing, raised her chin, and approached them, her mind racing with questions as she fought to conceal the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Before Celeste could speak, Adrian turned, his eyes widening in surprise. Clarissa stepped away, carefully disentangling her hand from his as though nothing suspicious had happened. In that tense moment, time stretched painfully long. A swirl of emotions, rage, betrayal, embarrassment, sorrow ignited inside Celeste. She balled her fists, feeling the sting of her nails biting into her palms. Adrian recovered faster than she did, a forced smile tugging at his lips. "Celeste, what a coincidence," he said, his tone coated with a practiced ease that made her skin crawl. I was just talking with Clarissa about some business matters. She's helping me with a new investment plan." He chuckled nervously, waving at Clarissa as if to confirm a harmless association. Celeste caught the flicker in Clarissa's eyes, cool, unapologetic confidence. It was as if Clarissa considered Celeste insignificant and expected to be forgiven or overlooked for having her fingers entwined with another woman's husband. That moment, far from quieting Celeste's suspicions, only deepened them. Her throat was tight as she forced a level tone. "I see," she managed. "What is the senator's daughter doing at a prenatal clinic?" She hoped her question would corner them, but Clarissa only offered a smooth response. "Just some personal errands," she said. "I'm here supporting a close friend." Something about Clarissa's melodic voice and refined demeanor set Celeste's teeth on edge. Rather than press the issue, Celeste found her eyes locking with Adrian's. She silently demanded an explanation, something genuine to ease the panic rising in her chest. But all she got was more airy, carefully constructed half-answers that told her absolutely nothing real. Despite the tension coursing through her, Celeste recognized that indulging in an explosive confrontation in the middle of the clinic would only make matters worse, especially as staff and patients were passing by. Mustering her last bit of composure, she turned on her heel, leaving Adrian and Clarissa standing there, tongues tied for a moment. She headed toward the private consultation room that she had scheduled, her thoughts a hurricane of worry and confusion. Once inside the dimly lit space, she noted the pastel art on the walls, images of serene mothers cradling newborns. The tranquil setting stood in stark contrast to her inner turmoil. She took a seat and pressed a hand gently against her abdomen, remembering that her body was harboring a precious life. "You're not alone," she whispered, addressing the little one inside her. "We're going to figure this out. I promise." Her vow to protect her unborn child fueled her resolve. Shortly after, Adrian slipped in, wearing an apologetic expression. The doctor, oblivious to the tension, entered and commenced the usual routine, measuring Celeste's weight, checking vitals, and scheduling an ultrasound. Adrian hovered by Celeste's side, nodding sympathetically whenever the doctor shared updates, but she felt a growing chasm between them. At times, she caught him glancing at his phone, a text from Clarissa. Anxiety hammered at her chest. With the visit concluded, Adrian insisted on walking her out, but Celeste opted to take a separate ride home, using an excuse about meeting a friend. As she stepped back into the bright corridor, she caught sight of Clarissa standing near a water dispenser, her eyes flicking in their direction. Celeste suppressed a shiver. Something told her that this was only the beginning of a far larger, far more dangerous story. At their opulent penthouse that evening, Celeste tried to approach the situation tactfully. She emerged from the bedroom wearing a silk robe, determined to have a calm but clear conversation with Adrian about what she had seen. The open living area offered a sweeping view of the city's glittering skyline. The ambience was meant to inspire romance or reflection, not confrontation, yet she had no choice. She found Adrian in the kitchen, absent-mindedly flipping through his phone. When he saw her, he hurriedly set it aside. Celeste noted how his eyes flickered with the tension of someone who knew he was caught but hoped to avoid the consequences. After a silence thick enough to cut, she asked quietly, "What exactly is going on between you and Clarissa da Costa?" Adrian's eyes flitted to the window. "I told you earlier, we're working on a potential business partnership. Her father is sponsoring a new technology initiative, and Clarissa is playing liaison." His words spilled out smoothly, yet Celeste sensed their hollowness. "I'm sorry if it looked suspicious," he added, "but there's absolutely nothing romantic going on." Celeste inhaled slowly, deciding to push further. "Then why were you holding hands?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her effort to maintain composure. Adrian paused. A flicker of something guilt perhaps crossed his features. "She was upset," he offered, failing to sound convincing. "I was consoling her about personal family issues." What family issues could the senator's daughter possibly confide in Adrian about, especially in a prenatal clinic hallway? The excuse was too feeble, but Celeste recognized a dead end. At least for now, she would gain nothing from a full-blown argument. Instead, she masked her disappointment with a thin smile and headed back to their bedroom, heart pounding with the knowledge that trust was dissolving before her very eyes. Days bled into restless nights. Despite her attempts to find some semblance of peace, Celeste's mind refused to quiet. She began to observe Adrian's behavior more carefully, noticing slight changes, the hushed phone calls, the cryptic texts that made him slip out onto the balcony for privacy, and the way he sometimes seemed distant even when they shared the same room. In an attempt to salvage their relationship, Celeste insisted that they attend a fundraiser together, a high-profile gala where the guest list read like a who's who of the city's elite. She hoped the night would rekindle a sense of unity. Adrian agreed, perhaps out of guilt, and the couple arrived at the lavish ballroom, arms linked, each wearing carefully curated smiles. The chandelier light refracted off gold filigree, and the shimmering gowns of socialites, creating an almost dreamlike atmosphere. However, the dream shattered the moment they encountered Senator Benedict da Costa. Flanked by Clarissa, the senator, with his charismatic grin, greeted them effusively. Clarissa offered a polite nod, her expression inscrutable. Celeste's heart hammered, and she took a steadying breath. While Adrian engaged in small talk about business expansions and legislative proposals, Celeste surveyed Clarissa's demeanor. Was there a subtle smugness in her gaze? Or was Celeste simply over-analyzing, driven by jealousy and fear? But soon, Celeste overheard a snippet. Clarissa teased Adrian about a lunch date he'd supposedly promised. He responded with a quiet laugh, as though they shared a private joke. Celeste's stomach lurched. Any hope that the gala might mend her fraying relationship felt like a distant memory. The sense of foreboding ballooned, and she began to sense that unraveling the truth would require more than polite conversation. It might demand a confrontation so tumultuous it would shake their lives to the core. That night, unable to rest, Celeste confided in her closest friend, Ling, a woman renowned for both her empathy and her resourcefulness. They met at a quiet cafe, well away from the city's glittering epicenter. Over cups of fragrant jasmine tea, Celeste poured her heart out. She detailed the chilling moment at the clinic, Adrian's half-baked explanations, and the tension at the gala with Clarissa. May listened intently, her gentle hands wrapped around the warm porcelain cup, nodding in understanding. After Celeste finished, May's eyes shimmered with concern. "I know someone who might help," she said. May worked as a freelance journalist and had contacts in the investigative field. He's a private investigator, a thorough, discreet one. He could probably unearth details that might clarify what's really going on. Though Celeste was hesitant about prying into her husband's private affairs, the idea of clarity was too tempting to ignore. If Adrian was innocent, the evidence would confirm it. If he wasn't, then at least she could decide her next steps with her eyes open. Within a few days, May introduced Celeste to Marcus Harlow, a calm, meticulous investigator who had the air of someone who'd seen the darkest corners of human entanglements. He took notes on the suspicious events, asked pointed questions about Adrian's finances, and looked intrigued when Clarissa's name entered the conversation. "I know her father," Marcus said, a subtle hint of distaste in his tone. "He is powerful, but as they say, the higher they climb, the harder they fall." Celeste walked away from their meeting feeling both apprehensive and hopeful. She was on a path that risked unearthing secrets she might never forget. But there was no turning back now. She had to uncover the truth, for herself and for the child she carried. While Marcus began his quiet dig into Adrian and Clarissa's connection, Celeste took a bold step to keep up appearances. She continued to perform the roles of doting wife, expectant mother, and supportive social companion at Adrian's business gatherings. Publicly, they remained a gleaming example of a successful, well-matched couple. Yet in private, Celeste felt an expanding gulf that no amount of forced smiles could bridge. During one such event, a dinner celebrating a new philanthropic technology initiative, Celeste feigned a restroom visit to escape the tension at their table. She wandered past a small corridor and paused when she heard Adrian's voice. He was around the corner, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Curious, she crept closer, her heart pounding with anticipation. What she overheard made her blood run cold. Adrian was pressuring someone over the phone to keep details hidden, to ensure that a certain name, Clarissa's name, remained out of any public record regarding a significant capital investment. He mentioned election funds and behind-the-scenes arrangements, words that hinted strongly at illegal campaign finance entanglements. Celeste retreated, trembling. Was Adrian embroiled in something more sinister than just an affair? She recalled his earlier claims of forging deals with the senator. Could he really be funneling money into the DaCosta political machine, money that might compromise everything? The implications spun wildly in her head. Feeling lightheaded, she returned to the table and plastered on a plastic grin while Adrian toasted a bright future for philanthropic endeavors. She wondered if Clarissa was a key player or merely a pawn. When Celeste locked eyes with Clarissa across the room, she saw no fear, no remorse, just confidence. It was the cool gaze of someone who believed they had the upper hand. A week later, the first real bombshell hit. Marcus Harlow, the private investigator, called Celeste to meet at a discreet cafe on the outskirts of the city. When she arrived, he was already seated at a corner table, a manila folder resting by his coffee cup. "Celeste," he greeted, leaning forward with a serious expression. "You were right to suspect something." Without further preamble, he opened the folder, revealing photographs of Adrian entering an upscale hotel alongside Clarissa DaCosta. In one shot, Adrian had his arm around her waist. In another, they appeared to be sharing an intimate conversation near the hotel entrance. The timestamps were from early morning hours, a far cry from business meetings. Celeste's eyes flooded with tears, but she blinked them back, determined to remain strong. "So he's cheating on me?" Her voice cracked. Marcus hesitated. "That's not all." He pointed to copies of financial documents. "Adrian has been moving large sums of money through shell companies, many linked to Senator DaCosta's political activities. I can't prove corruption outright, but it looks like clarifying that would only need a little more digging. There's a high probability your husband is involved in serious financial misconduct." Celeste's stomach churned, and she clutched the edge of the table. So Adrian wasn't just betraying her heart, he was risking their entire future with potentially criminal deeds. The swirling cocktail of betrayal, rage, and grief coalesced into a single question echoing in her mind. How could he? She didn't know where to start legal counsel, a divorce attorney, or even an honest confrontation with Adrian. Amid the chaos, only one thing shone with absolute clarity. She had to protect her unborn child from the fallout that was sure to come. Unsure how to proceed, Celeste tried first to confront Adrian in the sanctity of their penthouse. However, his schedule became strangely elusive. He arrived home late, left early, and cancelled any attempts at conversation. Every time she tried to bring up their relationship or the suspicious finances, he deflected with vague reassurances or changed the subject to her pregnancy health, feigning concern. One day, Celeste heard from a friend that Adrian was spotted at an exclusive party at a yacht club near the marina, and Clarissa was in attendance. Incensed, Celeste demanded Adrian's presence at home that same night, texting him urgently about a family emergency. When he arrived, slightly tipsy from champagne, she unleashed the words she'd bottled inside. "I know about the money laundering. I know about the hotel. And I know about Clarissa." Adrian froze, as though a black cloud had swallowed his features. "What are you talking about?" he spat, but Celeste saw panic flicker in his eyes. She calmly laid out the evidence, the photographs, the financial documents, the shell companies. His face paled. With nowhere to hide, Adrian burst into an angry tirade. "You had me investigated. How dare you?" He stormed around the living room, hurling accusations of betrayal. But Celeste refused to be cowed. "You are the one endangering our family," she replied, her tone steady despite tears forming in her eyes. "You broke our vows. I am merely finding out the truth so I can protect myself and our child." Rather than offer an apology, Adrian seethed with resentment. He insisted he was doing this for them, that forging these political alliances meant unstoppable wealth. When Celeste demanded an explanation for his closeness to Clarissa, he smirked bitterly. "You want to know the ugly truth?" he asked, voice trembling with rage. "She and I have a deal, and it has nothing to do with love." Adrian's confession stunned Celeste into speechlessness. He claimed Clarissa had offered him direct access to her father's extensive network's political connections that could provide fast lanes for Adrian's business expansions, preferential government contracts, and free passes around bureaucratic red tape. In return, Clarissa wanted a share of his company's stakes and a convenient companion for public appearances. Their hand-holding at the clinic was part of a carefully staged performance for her father's benefit, to create the illusion of a respectable union if ever needed. "All of this could catapult us to the top," Adrian declared, pacing aggressively. "The deals I'm making will ensure our child never wants for anything. We'll be unstoppable." "Stop talking like that," Celeste burst out, her tears escaping her eyes. "You're treating our marriage like collateral in your thirst for power. And, Clarissa, what if she wants something beyond business? How can you be so naive?" Adrian's face hardened. "I can handle Clarissa," he snapped. "She's just leverage. And if you're concerned about the money, consider the life you'll be giving your child, a life of luxury, status, and security." Celeste's outrage erupted. "Our child needs honesty and decency more than money gained from corruption. Do you really think scandal and betrayal will buy happiness?" Adrian's only reply was a cold stare, as though she were an obstacle to be pushed aside. The next words out of his mouth came in a chilling monotone. "If you threaten to expose anything, don't think I won't retaliate. You stand to lose more than you realize." Shaken, Celeste's heart pounded fiercely in her chest. She had never seen this ruthless side of Adrian. It was as if the man she'd married had dissolved into a cunning manipulator who valued ambition above all else. Tears streaming down her face, she locked herself in the bedroom, whispering reassurances to her growing belly, "I will protect you, no matter what." Determined to keep her promise, Celeste confided in Marcus again. This time, she asked him to expand his investigation not just into Adrian's finances, but also into Clarissa's secrets. She wanted to know if there was anything in Clarissa's past that might serve as leverage. If Adrian and Clarissa had formed some unholy alliance, Celeste was certain it wasn't as airtight as they believed. Marcus uncovered a shocking lead, a rumor that Clarissa might have once bribed a hospital administrator to bury evidence of a scandal involving her and another powerful figure. The details were fuzzy, but apparently something suspicious had occurred at that same prenatal clinic, and hush money had disappeared into administrative pockets. Something to do with a falsified paternity test? Marcus couldn't confirm the exact nature yet, but the very possibility made Celeste's jaw drop in alarm. Why a paternity test at a prenatal clinic? Could Clarissa be pregnant, perhaps, with Adrian's child? The idea turned Celeste's stomach, but she refused to succumb to fear without further proof. As she delved deeper, she realized there was more at stake than heartbreak. If Clarissa carried Adrian's child, it would complicate everything from finances to public perception. Worse yet, if the DaCosta family discovered Adrian's newly precarious position, they might use it to control him or ruin him. The net was tightening, and Celeste found herself strategizing in ways she never imagined. She recognized a strange transformation in her own psyche. The heartbreak had turned to anger, and the anger had sharpened into steel like resolve. She would use every bit of cunning she had to bring the truth to light and protect her baby. An unexpected break occurred one early morning when Celeste was plagued by a wave of nausea. She decided to head to the prenatal clinic alone for a checkup. The timing was coincidental, but fate sometimes had its plans. As she sat in the waiting room, flipping anxiously through a parenting magazine, Clarissa DaCosta strode in, clad in a designer coat, her posture regal. Clarissa signed a form at the front desk and took a seat, barely noticing Celeste. Celeste's pulse raced. She half expected Adrian to appear again, but he was nowhere in sight. Instead, Clarissa was alone, tapping her manicured nails on her phone while she waited to be called. Curiosity brewed. Celeste approached the receptionist and quietly asked who Clarissa had come to see. The receptionist, oblivious to the drama, shrugged. "She's here for a consultation, but the doctor asked for extra privacy. That's all I know." Hoping to observe something relevant, Celeste followed at a distance when Clarissa was escorted to a private room. Through a narrow opening in the blinds, Celeste glimpsed the senator's daughter, speaking anxiously with a doctor. Though she couldn't catch every word, the fragments that reached her ears included phrases like test results, paternity, and additional scans. An icy dread seized Celeste's heart. So the rumor about Clarissa's possible pregnancy or a hidden paternity test might be true. Suddenly, the door opened, and Clarissa stepped out with an envelope clutched in her trembling hand. She locked eyes with Celeste, realization dawning. Instantly, Clarissa masked her expression with haughty composure. Celeste's heart beat wildly, but she refused to look away. In that charged moment, no words were exchanged, but Celeste read the silent terror in Clarissa's eyes. Whatever that test said, it likely spelled crisis for Clarissa's carefully orchestrated life. Celeste realized she might finally have an edge if she could get her hands on those results. That night, a swirl of possibility and dread consumed Celeste. She recounted the clinic incident to Marcus, who reacted with immediate urgency. "We need to find out what's in those test results," he insisted. If Clarissa is pregnant, or if she's covering up something about paternity, it could shift the entire power dynamic. Senator DaCosta wouldn't want a scandal, especially not if his daughter is involved with a married millionaire and there's a child in question. Celeste couldn't shake the memory of Clarissa's stricken gaze. Was Clarissa's confidence crumbling under some hidden truth? If so, Celeste sensed it could be the catalyst to bring her husband's shady dealings crashing down. Because if Clarissa had lied to Adrian about her own pregnancy or another father, her credibility would shatter, and so would her alliance with Adrian. Marcus was quick to act. Within a couple of days, his network retrieved glimpses of information from a junior employee at the clinic. It turned out Clarissa had indeed undergone tests, but they were related to a rumored previous pregnancy that had ended under uncertain circumstances. The father, Celeste discovered, was not Adrian. More astonishingly, the real father was rumored to be a married politician from another state. Senator DaCosta had orchestrated the entire cover-up. Celeste's mind spun. So Clarissa's current relationship with Adrian might be purely transactional, with no genuine emotional entanglement, and Clarissa might be leveraging her father's earlier hush-money playbook to keep everyone under control. If Celeste made this fiasco public, it could unravel not just Adrian's empire, but the DaCosta family's well-polished reputation. The risk was enormous. She could become a target for their combined wrath, but the potential for karmic justice also loomed large. Celeste realized that the final blow would require impeccable timing. She needed a public stage, a place where the illusions would crumble and the truth would thunder through, unstoppable as a raging storm. And the perfect stage was just around the corner: Senator DaCosta's upcoming re-election fundraiser. Senator DaCosta's re-election fundraiser was set to be the season's most extravagant event, a lavish banquet at a historic estate, with senators, Congress members, and elite entrepreneurs mingling under glittering chandeliers. The press would swarm outside the iron-gated entrance, ready to capture every handshake and forced smile. Clarissa, of course, would stand by her father's side, radiating sophisticated charm. Adrian had secured an invitation, presumably as the senator's business ally, and Celeste decided she too would attend, ignoring Adrian's reluctant stance. Behind the scenes, Celeste and Marcus prepared meticulously. The plan was to reveal Adrian and Clarissa's unscrupulous secrets in the most dramatic, public, and irrefutable way possible. In the weeks leading up to the fundraiser, Celeste amassed every piece of documentation they could access, the financial records tying Adrian to the senator's illicit campaign donations, the suspicious shell companies, the hush-money transactions linked to Clarissa's earlier pregnancy scandal. The final blow was a covertly recorded conversation between Clarissa and her father, obtained by an unnamed source, mentioning how Adrian had been useful in funneling funds, and how Clarissa could twist his arm by dangling the threat of a fabricated paternity claim. The night arrived. Celeste, dressed in an elegantly simple gown that lovingly accentuated her baby bump, stepped into the grand foyer. Adrian was at her side, his expression frozen in apprehension. Clarissa, on the other hand, appeared as a polished socialite, hair swept into an exquisite updo, greeting dignitaries as though she owned the estate. At precisely 8:30, with guests in high spirits and journalists snapping photos, Celeste nodded to Marcus, who discreetly passed a flash drive to a trusted press contact. Moments later, a hush fell over the crowd as phones buzzed to life with breaking news alerts. A media outlet had just published a damning expose featuring recorded conversations, financial ledgers, and the entire web of corruption linking Adrian Lancaster, Senator DaCosta, and Clarissa. Panic flitted across Clarissa's face. Senator DaCosta froze in mid-conversation, eyes darting around as if searching for a safe exit. Adrian grabbed Celeste's wrist in desperation, hissing, "What have you done?" She pulled free, her heart pounding with a mix of terror and triumph. The truth had broken free, and there would be no containing the fallout. Chaos erupted. The senator's aides rushed to deny the allegations, but the evidence was overwhelming. Cameras flashed in every direction. Clarissa attempted to maintain her composure, but her voice shook during a hastily arranged press statement. She tried to label the recordings fabrications, yet her pleas rang hollow. Spectators watched, mesmerized, as the once untouchable family facade began to fracture. Adrian, sweat beading his forehead, turned to Celeste with a look that mingled fury and desperation. He realized that his carefully crafted house of cards was crumbling and that the wife he had betrayed was behind its collapse. While photographers clamored for statements, Celeste withdrew, leaving him to face the consequences of his ambition and deceit. In the weeks that followed, investigations sprang to life. Adrian's business accounts were frozen pending inquiries, and Clarissa all but vanished from public view. Senator DaCosta faced mounting pressure from both the media and political rivals to step down. Through it all, Celeste, though still reeling from heartbreak, found solace in her unborn baby. She had exposed the rot gnawing away at the life she once treasured, ensuring her child would never be shaped by a legacy of corruption. Eventually, Adrian tried to reconcile, offering half-hearted apologies drenched in self-pity. But Celeste had grown beyond that. She began divorce proceedings, focusing on safeguarding her future and that of her child. The karmic storm that had toppled Adrian and Clarissa left her with scars, but also with a renewed sense of self. In those final days, as she prepared a new, modest home, she felt a quiet exhilaration. Yes, she had faced betrayal. Yes, she had endured sorrow. But she had also delivered justice, giving her unfaithful husband and his scheming ally exactly what they deserved. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this pulse-pounding tale. We hope you found Celeste's journey to be both a cautionary lesson and a testament to resilience. When greed, betrayal, and deceit collide, the truth always finds a way to surface, and karmic retribution spares no one. Please remember that your support helps us continue to bring you stories packed with suspense, drama, and unforgettable twists. If you enjoyed this narration, if it stirred your heart, made you gasp, or left you reflecting on life's grand ironies, be sure to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel. More gripping tales await you.